Oronsay and Colonsay adventure continues, with both Andy and I paddling separate solos. Here's a quick recap of our journey so far. The boats were pre-packed on trolleys for loading onto the Oban Ferry for our sailing to Scalasaig on Colonsay. And we passed other great kayaking locations along the route. It was early evening before we departed Scalasaig Slipway, where we enjoyed a lovely 5-mile trip north to our camp spot at Balnahard Bay on Colonsay's northeast corner. Morning of day 2, we rounded Colonsay's northern reefs, which were exposed to the full might of the forecasted 1.5 metre swell. The spicy swell conditions continued down the entire west side of the island as they reared up, breaking over the hundreds of reef systems and slamming into the many headlands and cliffs.
Shame we couldn't have got in closer. Yeah, excellent. Couldn't wish for better conditions.
We continued our timings to work safe passage through the many reefs towards Port Lobe, a small bay west of Colonsay's airstrip. Andy fancied a snooze and lunch in the sun at Port Lobe. I would kayak solo this afternoon and meet Andy later that evening at Sea Cottage, taking the opportunity to have lunch away from the airport to fly the drone and video this stunning west coast. I encountered a serene stillness area within the reef systems, perfect for lunch, populated by inquisitive seals with their mournful cries and the gentle chirp of bird life feeding amongst the seaweed. One of the many seals chilling in the crystal clear passageways between the reefs. Lunch over, I headed out westward to investigate the energy of the breaking surf on the outer reefs. It has to be noted, we were privileged to travel this exposed coastline, open to the full unhindered might of Atlantic weather. This would be a formidable place on many a different day. As a long-established kayak surfer out solo around these distant reef breaks, my instincts were heightened, keeping an eye on the sea's surface for any signs of larger swells with potential breaking areas. Other shallow areas required careful timing to navigate safe passage and avoid being deposited onto the rocks. Knowing when to hang back and when to boot it is just as important too. All the time there were furry Yoda Masters watching and laughing at my feeble progress in their playground. At this point I had rounded the extreme southwestern section of Colonsay's outer reef breaks, so headed in towards Oronsay's northwestern shore. Once more heading out to the outer reef breaks off the westerly point. Hang on, my eye had caught the sight of some perfect wave shapes in the distance. And I wasn't wrong, small barreling waves. Despite them being short point breaks with no shoulder, they were beautiful in this light. Outer reef systems off Oronsay and Colonsay's extreme western points. Aerial views looking southwest towards Oronsay's southwestern reef breaks off the two west-facing points. The weather throughout the entire day had been absolutely stunning, bathed in sunshine with little or no wind. Oronsay's western beaches with their brilliant white sand. Stunning familiar scenery beyond Oronsay's low aspect, with Isla and the distinctive Paps of Jura beyond. More Jedi Masters having a good laugh. Heading towards the north coast of Oronsay's long southwestern arm and more reef sections of its exposed tip. I'd reached the Cubaig reef section and noticed a possible channel through to the south side. The channel turned out to be an amazingly serene oasis of quiet where I could take in the sheer beauty of the surrounding scenery and the wildlife with mournful seals and seabirds inhabiting it. I still needed that watchful eye seaward, as the unhindered south-facing reefs weren't done with me yet, as I judged which areas would break and which I could skirt safely. The terns were certainly making the most of the available sand eels feast, with their familiar shrieking and aerial displays. The views east opened up now to reveal Jura's distinctive outline stretching northward into the distance. And still the odd little passageways through the reefs to explore and navigate. And even from in here, glimpses of Jura's outline clearly visible. I paddle up the sound inside the islands on my right, where there's usually a boat or two moored, in the sheltered bay. This will be my landing and camp spot for the night, near Sea Cottage. The perfect setting with large sandy beach immediately brings back many memories of my visits over the years, particularly my first in 1979, when our group was shown true old-style island hospitality from the then laird and farmer of Oronsay, Andrew McNieil, who without saying a word presented us with a tray of eggs. There are more tales of hospitality to come later. My GPS trace of this afternoon's solo paddle, from leaving Andy at Port Lobe to my lunch spot, then out round the reefs and along Oronsay's shoreline to our camp spot at Sea Cottage. A little over 20 very satisfying miles for the day in some lively conditions. I've paddled various routes to reach this beautiful part of Oronsay, these from the Sound of Islay, others from Ruin Talon on Jura's remote west coast. Yes, have a good laugh. I'm from the very early days when most kayaking equipment was very basic and usually homemade. Delightful memories of first meeting Andrew McNieil, laird and master piper, who insisted we use Sea Cottage, and join him and his lovely wife Flora at their farmhouse later for several drams and to chat and listen to him play the chanter of his bagpipes. A very different Sea Cottage, now stylishly renovated as a holiday home. I certainly don't remember this porch extension with gargoyle above the door. And there were only a couple of very small windows allowing light into its gloomy yet beautifully wood-cladded interior. Nevertheless, in 1979 we had a very comfortable night in preference to my primitive bivvy sheet. I now use my Berghaus Cairngorm 2, which I find is an excellent tent for all of my multi-day kayaking trips, with large porch area to cook under if required, and double doors should the wind change direction. But we all know that never happens. The camp area near Sea Cottage is roomy, facing east with excellent views across the 10 miles to Jura's western shore. Tonight's drone flight takes us to Andrew and Flora McNeil's old farmhouse, where we once enjoyed their exceptional hospitality with food and whiskey as we chatted into the small hours, and Andrew played on his bagpipes chanter, such a wonderful couple. Andrew sold the island and solitary farmhouse next to the Priory ruins to the Colburn family. Extensive farm buildings were later added, including the walled garden. Each time I visit, it's like a pilgrimage, returning to explore the Priory ruins, which allegedly date back to 1353 and were possibly built on much earlier foundation ruins. The date of this little cross is unclear. Some believe it dates back as far as the 7th century. Old stone corbels stick out from the ruined walls, once supporting roof and flooring beams. I find there's always a sense of calm and certain atmosphere in these old buildings as I wander around. I remember these cloisters years ago with a few human bone remains, including a thigh bone, neatly piled in one of these arches. The sandy graves were more exposed, with few buildings in those days where the wind would uncover the contents. The McNeils of Gear established themselves on Oronsay in the early 16th century, Andrew being the last family member to own and live on the island, moving to Scalasaig sadly due to ill health a few years after my first visit. This recent building was erected to house, preserve and display the many intricately carved tombstones and grave slabs which were in a wood shed on my first visit. The two carved crosses at the Priory, together with the many now preserved intricately carved tombstones, are directly linked to Iona School of Carving, islands lying only 22 miles apart. I remember a large paper rubbing of this one hanging behind the door of Sea Cottage when we stayed there overnight. The Great Cross, beautifully carved by the Iona School of Carving, believed to be the best preserved example in the Western Isles, dates back to the 15th century. Oronsay is a low-lying tidal island, accessible for around 2 hours twice a day via the causeway known as the Strand, joining it to the larger island of Colonsay. Oronsay is managed by the RSPB, focusing on protecting wildlife like corn crakes and choughs. Farming methods include grazing with ling, cattle and sheep to create a suitable habitat for birds and to protect native black bees. Back from my pilgrimage and walk to the south of the island, it's time to relax, taking in the amazing views with a nice cuppa before clearing up and heading for bed. Day 3, and I woke to a calm and overcast sky, but this would burn off to blue like yesterday. Usual coffee and porridge would be the order of the day as I checked out the various boats at anchor in the bay. Both bags packed with all my gear, a clear campsite checked out to ensure no rubbish was left behind. A breathtaking beach with such fine views, and how privileged it felt to be blessed with incredible weather. Once again I'd say my goodbyes to Sea Cottage and the wonderful Isle of Oronsay, as I hope to return again in the near future. More of the local seals making sure we'll leave their domain. Passing the large sand dunes just south of the narrow passageway separating Oronsay from the larger Colonsay. Views through to the west and the tall pylons carrying power lines etc. to the farm on Oronsay. The shallowing turquoise waters as I near the crossing point. And finally 4x4 tracks in the shallow waters on the south side of the Strand. Heading back out to the east with superb cloudscapes with their wispy streaks. Noisy oyster catchers break the silence as I exit the eastern entrance. Paddling north, it's not long before heading across the shallow bay south of the navigation light in the far distance. But still time to investigate a few calm and shallow passages between the reefs. Paddling out across the bay to the far shore, finally reaching the navigation beacon to indicate the south approach to a hidden Scalasaig harbour around the corner. The end of the pier finally coming into view. And a stunning final view from the water as we approach the slip we had left from 3 incredible days earlier. This had been an absolutely outstanding kayak journey. General map showing the route of each day with camp spots marked. Ordnance survey map with day 3 GPS trace overlay. Day 3 with animated GPS route trace. Landed, changed and plenty of time to fly the drone. A seagull's view of Scalasaig Harbour and Ferry Terminal. Sunday and a sleepy Scalasaig, so Andy and I would take a walk up this straight road to Scalasaig Hotel for a nice cup of tea. Afterwards we walked up to the monument we'd spotted as we'd kayaked from the south, with its commanding view overlooking the harbour and village. I returned to fly the drone to capture these aerial views. Views of Colonsay's west side and lower Kilchatton over the hill behind Scalasaig. Southwest with Port Loeb and Colonsay's airstrip and Oronsay beyond. On walking back with plenty of time for the ferry, Andy opted for another walk to take photographs from the taller hill behind the village. The afternoon sunlight as it pierces the cross of Scalasaig's war memorial. And a final trolley dash as we board the ferry back to Oban. Sad to be leaving these two incredible islands, each totally different yet equally beautiful. What a superb trip this had been. 3 days of stunning weather and outstanding sea conditions. Back in Oban now, in the fading light, a long drive home ahead, mostly in the dark, but a time to reflect on another amazing Scottish sea kayaking adventure. More recommended adventures by clicking the thumbnails, like and share with friends.